Look toward the quiet edge of this moment, because a conversation your person never expected has just placed your name at the center of everything. The strange part is not that someone spoke about you. It is who spoke, and why your person suddenly stopped answering. Picture it. The person you love is moving through an ordinary moment, thinking they already understand what exists between you. They know your silence, your warmth, your distance. The way you can appear calm even when entire worlds are moving behind your eyes. Then a stranger enters the picture. Not someone from your past. Not one of their friends. Someone with absolutely nothing to gain from choosing a side. And almost immediately, this stranger says something unexpected. Be careful getting closer to that person. Your person freezes. Because those words sound like a warning. But stay with this moment, the warning was not what it appeared to be. Your person asks the obvious question. Why? The stranger hesitates. For several seconds, nothing follows. And somehow, that silence says more than an immediate answer ever could. Your person begins imagining possibilities. Maybe you have been misunderstood again. Maybe somebody has heard a story about you. Maybe something hidden is finally arriving at the surface. But then the stranger looks directly at them and says something completely different. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Something shifts. Not fear. Recognition. Because your person has secretly felt this for longer than they have admitted. There has always been something about you they could never fully explain. You don't simply enter people's lives. You change the atmosphere around them. You make people question decisions they once thought were permanent. You make silence feel louder. You make someone confront parts of themselves they were able to ignore until you arrived. And perhaps that is why your person has been struggling. They thought their feelings for you were only emotional. The stranger was about to suggest something deeper. Listen closely now. Your person asks, almost impatiently, then who are they really? And this is where the entire conversation changes direction. The stranger doesn't give your person some dramatic label. Instead, they reveal something far more powerful. They say you are someone who has learned to survive without constantly proving yourself. Someone who notices far more than you reveal. Someone whose greatest strength is not chasing people when they become uncertain. And suddenly your person's mind begins replaying every moment with you. Every time you could have begged for understanding, but chose dignity. Every moment you could have forced an answer, but stepped back. Every occasion when people underestimated your quietness because they couldn't see the intelligence behind it. What if that is the truth the stranger noticed immediately? Stay a little longer, because the next words are where this becomes personal. The stranger tells your person. The reason I'm telling you to stay away isn't because there's something wrong with them. It's because if you aren't ready to become completely honest with yourself, being close to them will make hiding impossible. That sentence lands differently. Your person expected a warning about you. Instead, they received a warning about themselves. And for the first time, they begin understanding why your presence has affected them so deeply. You were never difficult to understand. They were afraid of what understanding you would require them to admit. Their feelings. Their hesitation. Their mistakes. And perhaps even the future they secretly imagine whenever your name appears. But the stranger hasn't finished. There is one final detail they know about you, something your person never told them. And when they reveal how they know it, your person will realize this conversation may not have happened by accident at all. Something about the stranger's final expression made your person stop treating the conversation like coincidence. There was certainty there. Not the certainty of someone repeating gossip. Not the confidence of someone trying to impress. It was quieter than that. Almost as if this stranger had recognized a pattern your person had been too emotionally involved to see. And then came the detail that changed the temperature of the entire conversation. The stranger described something about you that had never been mentioned. A habit. A way you pull back when something feels forced. The way you can care deeply and still refuse to abandon your self-respect just to keep someone close. Your person stared at them. How do you know that? The stranger didn't answer immediately. Instead, they asked a question. Have you ever noticed that whenever this person becomes quiet, you start thinking more clearly about everything you avoided saying? That question reached somewhere deep. Because yes, your person had noticed. Every time you stopped explaining yourself, their mind became louder. Every time you gave them space, they began hearing the truth they had been covering with distractions. Every time you stopped reaching, they suddenly remembered every moment when you had reached with sincerity. And now the stranger was putting words around something your person had never been able to name. You were not controlling their emotions. You were reflecting them back. That was the real reason the stranger had used the words, "stay away." Not as rejection. As a challenge. If you're going to stay close to someone like that, the stranger finally says, you can't keep showing up halfway. Your person becomes still. Halfway. That word follows them. Because deep down, they know exactly what it means. Half honesty. Half courage. Half effort. Feeling something powerful, then pretending it is ordinary. Imagining a future, then acting detached whenever the possibility becomes too real. And suddenly your person understands that the stranger isn't exposing you at all. They are exposing the distance between what your person feels and what they have been willing to do about it. But the conversation takes another turn. A surprising one. The stranger says, there's something else about them. Your person leans closer. And what follows doesn't sound like a warning anymore. It sounds almost like admiration. They've changed. Two simple words. Yet your person knows exactly what they mean. You are not standing where you once stood emotionally. You have been rebuilding yourself quietly. Learning where to place your energy. Learning that real connection does not require constant pursuit. Learning that love without clarity can become exhausting, and that protecting your peace does not mean your heart has become cold. Your person realizes something then. They may have been assuming you would always remain emotionally available in the same way. But you are evolving. And evolution changes choices. What if this is the part they were never prepared for? The stranger continues. They still care. But they're starting to understand their own value differently. That sentence changes everything. Because your person had been wondering whether your recent distance meant indifference. Now they begin considering another possibility. Maybe your silence isn't emptiness. Maybe it is decision. Maybe you stopped trying to convince someone who already knew how much you mattered. Stay with this, because the conversation is about to reveal why the stranger recognized you in the first place. And if this story is speaking to something you've quietly experienced, you can share it with someone who might understand. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you want to continue walking through these deeper moments together. Now listen carefully. Your person asks again, how do you know so much about them? This time, the stranger finally answers. But not in the way your person expects. I've met someone like them before. Your person's expression changes. The stranger looks away for a moment, almost remembering another chapter of their own life. Someone who gave people chances without losing themselves. Someone who stayed patient until patience became permission for others to delay what mattered. Then the stranger looks back. And one day, that person stopped waiting. Your person feels those words differently. Because suddenly the warning becomes clear. The stranger wasn't telling them to stay away because you were dangerous. They were telling them to stay away if they planned to keep wasting time. Because someone like you may forgive confusion. You may understand hesitation. You may even leave room for growth. But eventually, your future begins asking more from you than your past ever did. And this is where the stranger says the line your person cannot forget. If you know this person matters, don't wait until their life teaches them they can be completely happy without your answer. Silence. A long one. Your person looks down. Because for the first time, the possibility becomes real. Not losing you through conflict. Losing the opportunity through delay. But there is still something missing. The stranger has not yet explained why they seem to recognize you specifically. And just when your person believes the conversation is ending, the stranger mentions one detail connected to your past that makes them look up instantly. A detail that should have been impossible for them to know. The impossible detail was not a name, a place, or something anyone could have guessed. It was a choice you once made when no one was watching. A moment when you walked away from something you wanted because staying would have required you to betray your own inner truth. Your person had heard you mention that chapter only once. Briefly. Almost casually. Yet somehow, the stranger described the lesson behind it with unsettling precision. You've already learned what happens when you ignore your own instincts just to keep someone else comfortable. Your person goes completely quiet. Because now this no longer feels like a stranger making observations. It feels like someone has opened a door into a part of your story that was never supposed to be visible. And then your person asks the question that has been growing inside them since the conversation began. Have you actually met them? The stranger smiles. Not mysteriously. Almost knowingly. No. That answer creates even more confusion. Then how could you possibly know? The stranger leans back and says something your person will replay later. Because people reveal themselves in the effect they leave behind. Pause there. Think about that. Your person begins remembering the ways your presence changed their behavior without you ever demanding anything from them. They became more reflective. More aware. More conscious of promises they made too easily. More uncomfortable with pretending that important feelings were somehow insignificant. And perhaps this is what the stranger had noticed. Your person wasn't talking about you like someone describing an ordinary attraction. They were talking about you like someone trying to explain an event that had reorganized their inner world. The stranger had simply listened carefully enough to hear it. Then came the revelation. You keep asking who they really are, the stranger says, but you've already answered that every time you've spoken about them. Your person frowns. The stranger continues. You said they challenge you without attacking you. You said their silence makes you rethink yourself. You said being around them makes the future feel more serious. You said you compare other connections to what you feel with them. The truth begins assembling itself. Piece by piece. Your person realizes that they had been revealing your importance without realizing it. And the stranger saw something they hadn't yet admitted. You are not simply someone they care about. You represent a decision point. One path allows them to continue living carefully, protecting themselves from vulnerability, postponing everything meaningful until some perfect moment arrives. The other path asks them to become clearer, braver, more honest. That is why this connection has felt so intense. Not because something is wrong. Because something is asking to grow. But wait, the strangest part is still ahead. Your person finally says, "So why did you tell me to stay away?" The stranger's expression changes. This time the answer comes immediately. Because if you go toward them, go with intention. Those words settle heavily. No testing them. No appearing and disappearing just to see whether they still care. No expecting them to carry the emotional weight while you decide what you want. Your person knows exactly why those words hurt. Because somewhere inside, they recognize moments when uncertainty made them inconsistent. And now they understand the warning fully. The stranger was protecting something. Not you from love. Not your person from you. They were protecting the possibility of something genuine from being damaged by hesitation. And suddenly your person asks one final question. What happens if I'm already too late? The stranger looks toward them for several seconds. Then says, "That depends on what you do next." Your person's heartbeat changes. Because for the first time, this conversation stops being about analyzing you. It becomes about action. And there is something your person has been considering doing, something they haven't told anyone yet. A message. A decision. A move toward you that would finally reveal whether all this hesitation was temporary, or whether they are truly ready to meet you differently. But there is one sentence the stranger gives them first. One sentence that completely changes what your person plans to say when they finally reach out. The sentence was so simple that your person almost missed its power. The stranger said, "Do not approach them with the version of you that created the distance." And suddenly, everything became clear. Your person had been thinking about reaching out. Maybe sending a familiar message. Maybe saying something light, something safe, something that would test the atmosphere without revealing too much. But now that plan felt insufficient. Because what would be the point of returning with the same uncertainty that caused the silence in the first place? That question stayed with them. And something deeper began changing. Your person stopped asking, "Will they still want me?" Instead, they started asking, "Am I finally ready to show them who I really am?" That is a very different question. Stay close to this moment, because this is where the stranger's warning becomes something almost futuristic, a glimpse of two possible versions of what comes next. In one future, your person keeps waiting. Days become weeks. They continue thinking about you in private, checking for signs, wondering whether you still care, imagining conversations they never actually begin. And meanwhile, you keep moving. Not angrily. Not dramatically. You simply become more aligned with yourself. Your standards become clearer. Your peace becomes more valuable. Your life starts filling with possibilities that do not require you to remain emotionally parked in the same place. Then there is another future. Your person stops hiding behind timing. They speak. Not with perfect words. With real ones. They admit that your presence affected them more deeply than they allowed you to see. They acknowledge where they hesitated. They stop expecting you to read between lines they were too afraid to say aloud. And the stranger tells them something unexpected. You cannot control how they respond. But you can control whether they finally meet the truthful version of you. That lands differently. Because your person realizes this is no longer about winning you. It is about becoming honest enough to deserve whatever answer comes next. And somewhere inside that realization, fear starts losing its influence. Something else takes its place. Clarity. Then your person asks, what if they've already changed too much? The stranger gives a faint smile. They were supposed to change. That answer surprises them. They were never meant to remain frozen while you figured yourself out. Think about that. Maybe the biggest revelation about who you really are is not some secret identity. It is this. You are someone whose life keeps moving. Someone capable of loving deeply without making love the only destination. Someone who can hold memories without becoming trapped inside them. Someone whose future is bigger than one unanswered question. And strangely, that truth makes your person want to come closer, not farther away. Because now they see you differently. They don't see someone waiting to be chosen. They see someone already choosing themselves. If this unfolding story has been speaking to something you recognize in your own journey, you can share it with someone who would feel its meaning too. Leave your perspective in the comments, and subscribe if you want to stay connected to the next revelation. Now the conversation reaches its most important turn. Your person asks the stranger one final thing. If I contact them, what should I say? The stranger doesn't give them a script. Instead, they say, tell them the truth you kept editing. Those words stop everything. Because your person instantly knows what that truth is. There is a sentence they have rewritten inside their mind countless times. A sentence they almost sent. Then deleted. Almost admitted. Then buried beneath pride, timing, uncertainty, and the hope that somehow you would understand without hearing it. But this time they are considering saying it exactly as it exists. No disguise. No emotional puzzle. No pretending. And the sentence begins with something you may never have expected from them. I finally understand why losing your presence scared me more than I ever admitted. But that is only the beginning. Because what they are preparing to reveal after those words is not just about missing you. It is about the future they secretly pictured with you, and the one decision they now believe could change everything. What your person is about to admit is not something they discovered overnight. It has been building quietly beneath everything they refuse to name. The stranger's words keep returning to them. Tell them the truth you kept editing. And now your person finally understands how much they have edited themselves around you. They softened feelings that were stronger than they wanted to admit. They called attachment confusion. They called longing bad timing. They called the future they imagined with you just a thought. But deep down, none of those explanations ever felt complete. Because the truth was simpler. You mattered. More than they planned. More than they prepared for. And perhaps more than they ever let you see. There is a strange moment when someone stops running from what they feel. Nothing outside necessarily changes. The room looks the same. The phone is still sitting there. The world keeps moving. But internally, everything becomes different. That is where your person is now. They begin imagining what it would actually mean to say the sentence they have avoided for so long. Not, "I miss you." That would be too small. Not, "I've been thinking about you." That would barely touch the truth. What they really want to say is something closer to this. I kept acting like I had more time because admitting how much you mattered would have forced me to make a real decision. And there it is. The hidden center of everything. Time. Your person thought time would wait. They thought the connection would remain exactly where they left it. They thought your feelings would stay available while they sorted through their uncertainty. But the stranger changed that illusion. Because now your person sees a future where you do not disappear in heartbreak. You simply move forward. You meet new possibilities. You become even more grounded. And one day, someone else may recognize immediately what your person took too long to understand. That thought changes them. Not into panic. Into awareness. Stay with this moment, because there is another revelation approaching. Your person suddenly remembers something you once said. Maybe it sounded ordinary at the time. Something about wanting consistency. Something about wanting actions that match words. Something about being tired of guessing where you stand with people. Back then, your person heard the sentence. Now they understand it. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for clarity. And they gave you uncertainty. That realization carries weight. Yet the stranger's final advice prevents your person from turning that weight into regret. Don't go back just to apologize for the past, they had said. Go forward differently. That becomes the new direction. Your person begins thinking beyond one message. Because one beautiful message means very little if nothing changes afterward. They know that now. So they start asking harder questions. Can I be consistent? Can I stop disappearing when feelings become serious? Can I communicate without making them decode me? Can I show up when there is nothing dramatic happening, when love is simply ordinary and real? Those questions reveal something extraordinary. Your person is no longer wondering how to get your attention. They are wondering how to become someone capable of keeping your trust. And this is where the stranger's warning fully transforms. Stay away from them was never the final message. The real message was: stay away unless you are ready to stop treating something meaningful like something temporary. Your person understands. And for the first time, they do not feel threatened by your strength. They respect it. They understand why you became quieter. Why you stopped over-explaining. Why you began protecting parts of yourself that once remained completely open. You did not become unreachable. You became discerning. That difference matters. Then something unexpected happens. Your person picks up their phone. They open your conversation. Their fingers hover over the screen. There are old messages there. Old warmth. Old misunderstandings. Fragments of a connection that never received a proper ending. But instead of scrolling backward, they start typing forward. One sentence. Then another. They delete nothing. And somewhere in that message is the confession the stranger unknowingly gave them the courage to face. Your person finally admits what they imagined when they pictured a life with you. Not fantasy. Not perfection. Something much more intimate. A home where silence feels safe. A future where neither of you has to guess. A relationship built from truth instead of emotional tests. And then they type the line that may change everything. I don't want another version of this story where I realize what you meant only after you've already become part of someone else's future. But they still haven't pressed send. Because one final question is holding their hand above the screen. And the answer to that question will decide whether this remains another unsent truth, or becomes the moment everything between you finally changes. Then the question arrived, the one your person could no longer escape. If I send this, am I ready for whatever truth comes back? For a moment, their thumb stays completely still above the screen. Because reaching out is easy when you secretly expect the answer you want. Real courage is different. Real courage means speaking honestly even when you cannot control the response. And that is exactly what the stranger had been trying to show them from the beginning. Your person finally realizes that this was never about finding the perfect message. It was about becoming strong enough to stop hiding behind perfect timing. What if this single moment changes the entire direction of the story? They look again at what they have written. No dramatic promises. No attempt to make you feel responsible for their emotions. No carefully placed words designed to pull you backward. Just truth. They admit that they misunderstood your silence. They confess that they once believed distance meant you cared less. Now they see another possibility. Maybe you became quiet because you had already said enough. Maybe you stopped repeating yourself because your heart was tired of turning clarity into a negotiation. Maybe you were waiting to see whether they would ever understand without being guided every step of the way. And suddenly, something about you becomes clearer to them. The stranger had said, "You don't understand who you're dealing with." Now they do. You are not someone who needs endless grand gestures. You notice patterns. You notice consistency. You notice whether words survive after the emotional moment is over. That realization changes what your person wants to offer you. Not intensity for one night. Reliability over time. Not another mysterious return. A different way of showing up. Stay a little longer, because the next realization is the one they never expected to have. Your person asks themselves, what if they don't need me anymore? And strangely, instead of breaking them, the question matures them. Because perhaps love was never supposed to be about being needed. Perhaps the deeper question is whether two people can choose each other freely, without fear being the reason they stay. Your person begins understanding that if you have become stronger during the distance, that does not make the connection impossible. It makes honesty even more important. They no longer want the version of you who waited anxiously for reassurance. They want to meet the version of you that knows your value. And they know that version of you may ask harder questions. Why now? What changed? How will this be different? Your person is finally preparing to answer those questions instead of avoiding them. Then they remember another thing the stranger said. Do not ask them to trust your intention. Give them something they can observe. That sentence changes the message again. Your person adds one final thought. I know words cannot repair uncertainty by themselves. If you allow me back into your space, I want my actions to explain what I should have understood sooner. Now the message feels complete. But something unexpected happens just before they send it. A notification appears. For 1 second, your person thinks it might be you. It isn't. It is the stranger. Only one short message. Your person opens it. And the words on the screen make them sit completely still. Whatever happens next, remember this: you were warned to stay away because some people enter your life as a choice, and others reveal the person you are capable of becoming. Your person reads it twice. Then 3 times. Because now they finally understand the stranger's true revelation about you. You were never described as someone dangerous to their future. You were described as someone capable of changing its direction. And that is when your person stops hesitating. Their thumb moves toward the screen. But just before they press send, they notice something inside your old conversation, one small detail they somehow overlooked for months. And once they understand what it means, they realize you may have left them an answer long before they were ready to recognize it. The overlooked detail had been sitting there in plain sight, buried beneath an old conversation your person thought they already understood. One sentence from you. Nothing dramatic. Nothing written to create an effect. Just a quiet line you had sent long ago. I don't need anyone to chase me. I just need to know they are choosing me clearly. Your person reads it again. This time, it does not feel like an old message. It feels like an answer waiting across time. Suddenly, pieces begin connecting. The stranger's warning. Your silence. Your changing energy. The distance that had seemed mysterious. The unfinished conversations. All of it points back to something remarkably simple. You were never asking your person to become someone else. You were asking them to stop hiding who they already were. That realization changes the entire meaning of the past. Your person remembers moments when they wanted to say more but chose safer words. Times when they almost admitted how deeply they cared, then replaced honesty with humor. Times when they felt jealous of the possibility of losing you, yet acted as if nothing could affect them. And now they see the cost of that performance. Not punishment. Distance. Because when someone repeatedly hides what they feel, eventually the other person stops building their life around unspoken possibilities. Your person finally understands this. And something inside them becomes very calm. No rushing. No desperate attempt to force an outcome. Just certainty. They press send. The message leaves their screen. For several seconds, nothing happens. Then a minute passes. Another. Your person places the phone down. Picks it back up. Places it down again. But this time they stop themselves. Because the stranger's lesson is still alive inside them. If they are truly becoming different, then they cannot immediately turn honesty into another test. They have spoken. Now they must allow you the freedom to respond in your own time. That may be the hardest part. Yet it is also proof that something has changed. Stay with this unfolding moment, because the next shift is not happening on the screen. It is happening inside your person. For the first time, they begin imagining your future without automatically placing themselves at the center of it. They picture you succeeding, growing, finding peace, building something meaningful. And instead of asking, "Where do I fit?" they ask, "What kind of presence would I need to become to deserve a place beside that future?" That question reaches deeper than attraction. Because your person finally recognizes who you really are. You are not a destination they can arrive at whenever convenient. You are a human being in motion. Your dreams are moving. Your standards are evolving. Your understanding of love is becoming clearer. And anyone who walks beside you will have to respect that movement. The stranger knew this. That was the revelation. Not that you possessed some hidden power. Not that destiny guaranteed a particular ending. The stranger simply saw what your person had overlooked. You had already begun becoming someone who no longer confuses uncertainty with depth. That realization changes your person's next decision. They decide that if you respond, they will not immediately flood the conversation with everything they have been holding. They will listen. Actually listen. Because perhaps there are things you experienced that they never understood. Perhaps you were hurt in ways they dismissed because nothing explosive happened. Sometimes distance is created through small disappointments repeated quietly. A delayed answer. An avoided conversation. An affectionate moment followed by unexplained coldness. Tiny contradictions that slowly teach someone not to lean too heavily on what they are being shown. Your person can finally see that possibility. And rather than becoming defensive, they want to understand it. Then the phone lights up. One notification. Your name. Your person stares at the screen without opening it. For a strange second, everything seems suspended. The stranger's words return. Your old message returns. Every choice that brought both of you here seems to gather around this tiny glowing screen. Then your person opens your reply. It is shorter than expected. Only a few lines. But the first sentence changes their expression immediately. Because you do not say that you stopped caring. You do not say it is too late. Instead, you write something your person was completely unprepared to read. I wondered how long it would take you to finally understand what I was never going to explain twice. And underneath that sentence is another line. A line that makes your person realize the next conversation between you will not be about returning to what you had. It will be about deciding whether both of you are ready to build something neither of you has experienced before. Your reply does something unexpected to your person. It removes the comfort of pretending the past can simply be restarted. They read your words again. I wondered how long it would take you to finally understand what I was never going to explain twice. There is no anger in it. That is what affects them most. No accusation. No attempt to punish. Just clarity. And clarity has a different kind of weight. Your person realizes that if there is going to be another chapter between you, it cannot be built by recreating the old one. Something new would have to begin. Something cleaner. More intentional. More honest than what came before. Then they read the second line of your message. You can talk to me. But this time, don't come with confusion. Everything becomes still. Because those words contain both a boundary and an opening. You have not closed the door. But you are no longer standing there holding it open for someone who cannot decide whether they want to enter. That difference matters. Your person starts typing immediately. Then stops. Deletes everything. Not because they are afraid. Because for once, they want their response to come from understanding instead of urgency. And there is something almost futuristic about this moment, as if two possible timelines are standing beside each other. In the first, your person replies the way they used to. Too much emotion. Too little direction. Beautiful words followed by uncertain behavior. And slowly, both of you return to the same place. But in the second timeline, something changes at the foundation. Your person does not promise forever. They promise presence. They do not tell you what you should feel. They tell you what they are prepared to do. They do not ask you to forget everything. They acknowledge what happened and move differently. Which future would you choose? Your person finally begins typing. I understand. And I don't want another conversation where I speak from emotion tonight and disappear into uncertainty tomorrow. They stop. Read it. Continue. If we talk, I want to be honest about what changed in me, and I want to hear what changed in you. That line surprises even them. Because this is the first time they are not approaching you with a predetermined ending. They are making room for your truth too. And somewhere, the stranger's warning makes sense on an even deeper level. Stay away from you unless they are prepared to meet the real you. Not the version they remembered. Not the version who once accepted less clarity. The person you are now. Your person sends the reply. This time, they do not stare desperately at the screen. Something inside them has shifted from chasing an outcome to respecting a process. Minutes later, you answer. Then talk. 2 words. That is all. And somehow, those 2 words feel bigger than paragraphs. Your person knows this conversation will be different. There will be nowhere to hide behind vague affection. No room for half confessions. No pretending the connection is casual if both of you know it never felt that way. Then another thought enters your person's mind. The stranger. Why did that stranger appear at exactly the moment when your person was closest to giving up on understanding you? Why did they recognize the pattern so quickly? And why did their final message sound almost as though they knew this conversation would happen? Your person scrolls back to find the stranger's contact. Something looks different. The profile that was there earlier is gone. No photograph. No status. Only the message remains. And beneath it, your person notices a final line they somehow missed. When you finally speak to them, ask what they chose during the silence. Your person reads that sentence slowly. Because they assumed your silence was simply about stepping away. But what if you were not only leaving something behind? What if, during that silence, you made a decision about your own future? A decision your person knows nothing about yet. And when the conversation between you finally begins, that decision is going to become the next truth they have to face. The decision you made during the silence was not the one your person had been afraid of. It was bigger, quieter, and far more important. When the conversation finally begins, your person expects you to explain why you pulled away. Instead, you say something they never anticipated. I stopped waiting for someone else to decide what my life was allowed to become. The words land softly, but their meaning reaches deep. Your person does not interrupt. For once, they understand that this is not the moment to defend themselves. It is the moment to listen. You explain that the silence was never a game. You were not trying to make them miss you. You were not creating distance to test whether they would return. You simply reached a point where constantly wondering what someone else felt was taking too much attention away from what you wanted to build. So you made a choice. You began moving forward. Not away from love. Toward yourself. You started imagining a future that did not depend on receiving one particular message. You started making plans without leaving an empty space in every dream for someone who had not yet decided whether they wanted to stand there. And something surprising happened. You became lighter. Your person hears this and feels a strange mixture of admiration and realization. Because this is exactly what the stranger had been warning them about. You changed during the silence. Not into someone colder. Into someone clearer. And clarity changes the entire balance of a connection. Your person finally asks, "Does that mean there isn't room for me anymore?" You pause. That pause matters. Because the old version of you might have rushed to reassure them. The person speaking now does something different. You tell the truth. There can be room for you. But I won't remove pieces of my future to create it. Your person becomes completely silent. What a sentence. Stay with this moment, because this is where everything they believed about love begins rearranging itself. For a long time, your person thought being loved by you meant being guaranteed a place. Now they understand something much more mature. A place beside you is not guaranteed by history. It is created through how two people show up in the present. And suddenly, the stranger's first warning echoes again. Stay away. Those words once sounded negative. Now your person hears the full meaning beneath them. Stay away if you want the old version of this connection. Stay away if you expect your person to keep waiting without direction. Stay away if you want closeness without responsibility. But if you are ready to meet them honestly, then step forward differently. Your person takes that seriously. They tell you they do not want you to shrink your future for them. They do not want you to stop growing. And then they admit something even more unexpected. I think part of me was afraid that if you became completely confident without me, you wouldn't choose me anymore. There it is. The truth beneath so much hesitation. Not lack of feeling. Fear of becoming unnecessary. You listen. Then your response changes something inside them permanently. Being needed and being chosen are not the same thing. Your person closes their eyes for a second. Because somehow, that sentence explains everything. You do not want someone tied to you through fear. You want someone who can stand on their own and still say, with clarity, I want to build beside you. That is different. Stronger. More peaceful. And your person finally begins understanding who you really are in a way even the stranger could not fully explain. You are not asking love to complete your life. You are asking love to complement a life you are already building. That realization removes something from your person. The pressure to become your entire world. And in its place comes a more meaningful responsibility. To become trustworthy inside it. Then your person asks the question that has been waiting underneath everything. What did you choose during the silence? You take a breath. And finally reveal it. You chose a direction. A new goal. A possibility that could change where you live, how you spend your time, perhaps even the shape of the next chapter of your life. Your person was expecting emotional news. Instead, they hear that your world may literally be moving forward. And suddenly, timing becomes real. Not dramatic. Real. Because there may soon be distance between you that cannot be solved with another late realization. Your person asks how soon. Your answer makes them sit upright. Sooner than you think. And in that instant, the stranger's warning transforms one final time. Maybe the stranger was never warning your person to stay away from you. Maybe they were warning them that the window to meet you where you are now would not remain open forever. But your person does not react with panic. They do something far more surprising. They ask you one question. A question that proves they may actually have understood everything. If your future is already moving, would you let me show you that I'm capable of moving with it? And your answer does not come immediately. Because what you say next will determine whether this becomes a reunion with the past. Or the beginning of an entirely different future. For several seconds, you say nothing, and your person realizes your silence is no longer something they are afraid of. They understand it now. Your silence is not emptiness. It is consideration. You are deciding whether their words deserve a place in the future you have already begun creating. And for the first time, your person does not rush to fill the space. They wait. Not passively. Respectfully. Then you finally answer. You can move with me, but you cannot ask me to move backward. That sentence changes everything. Your person expected hope. Instead, they receive a condition rooted in truth. You are not offering them the old connection again. You are offering them the possibility of something new. Something that cannot survive on memories alone. Something that must be built from who both of you have become. And strangely, your person feels relieved. Because they no longer want to return to the past either. They have seen what hesitation created. They have seen what unspoken feelings cost. They have learned what happens when two people care deeply but keep waiting for the other person to make the first courageous move.